Okay, in conclusion, I just want to make a few just key points about regression and progression with the why. The most important thing is to correct and repattern the upper trap dominance into more of a balanced lower trap, upper trap, force couple with the serratus, arm over the head, get the lat, rotator cuff to fire, get that humerus to maintain its path of center of rotation on a good stable scapula over the head. And that's really the point of the why, is to kind of correct and repattern those things I just mentioned. So a couple of key points. When a person is down prone and flat, again, you're going to already be in the fully flexed position, so they had to have been cleared for enough overhead mobility to even get there in the first place. If we didn't do that, they have a potential overhead mobility problem or a T-spine problem. That position is going to force them to compensate because they're already all over the head, and then they're asking to be lifted an extra 1 or 2 inches over the head. Mobility not being good, they're not going to be able to pattern correctly. Their body's just going to compensate around the tightness. So you're going to have to go back, make sure that you properly get the T-spine mobile, get the mobility and flexibility around the shoulder complex itself, do the proper soft tissue work to be able to get them there in the first place, and then start to repattern as you build mobility. So one of the key things you can do with someone like that is to elevate them either onto the bench or over a ball or something like that. Over the ball is really good because you can really start to eliminate some of the spinal extension compensation that comes in too. So if they have an overhead mobility problem, one of the things we can do here is get into this position on a stability ball, purposely flex the hips into the ball, so I'm actually driving my knees into the ball to help get some reciprocal inhibition back here so that I can't extend as easily. And then I can start down a little bit lower here with my arms. This can also be a progression when you want to add load and start to incorporate more range of motion, more movement than just from the fully flexed position only a couple of inches when you're laying prone on the ground. But as a regression, I can do the same thing, reach, I can externally rotate and pack, and then I can maintain that position to a shorter range of motion. This is all I have, or this is all I have, or this is all I have. I can work on patterning within the range of motion I have, and then I can superset it with some mobility work down here, and then I can come back up and re-educate or retrain that little bit into more range of motion that I just developed with the person down there, and go back and forth between mobility and repatterning, mobility, repatterning. As I gain more mobility, I repattern, pattern. So I'm building the proper pattern as I gain mobility. Another thing to remember again is that when you're in that fully prone position and you're already over the head there, it doesn't have much room for error because you can't move. There's not as much motion to deal with. When you hang off the end of a bench or the end of a ball, you have much more motion to deal with. And I think that's important as a progression. When you start adding load to the hand, 1, 2, 3, 4 pound dumbbells, and so on. And we want to then start patterning the full motion over the head like that. That could be also a very good thing. So I think it all just depends on what you're seeing with the person, what your evaluation shows you, what your assessment shows you, and then where you need to go. And then what they're showing you as their compensation strategies when they start trying to pattern correctly. Also, sometimes a person with bigger girth through the upper body, their head will hang really far down when they lay prone. You know, they'll be so far up because of their girth that their head will down here and they'll be really flexed through the cervical spine, and you may need a pad or something here to buffer that to get their cervical spine to line up correctly. And also to take pressure off their nose, just from a comfort standpoint, that can be presented there. But typically people very small, like Nagar, for example, she can lay pretty flat and be in a pretty good position without needing that buffer. And then also, if they still can't quite get this, again, doing it vertical, standing face the wall is a really good position. If they still have mobility problems and you still want to pattern it, you want to use the vertical face the wall Y, you can simply back up so their hands are against the wall. I'll just move over here, you can follow me. And let's just pretend I'm against the wall. Here I am overhead all the way. So you can just have them back up to whatever their range of motion and their assessment showed, and pattern here with less range of motion. And that can be the way to do it standing up, face the wall. And then the last key point to make about this whole thing here is to remember that it's about getting the pattern back, not just doing this 1, 2, 3 kind of motion. Eventually we want to build it back into a nice, smooth, rhythmic motion where we reach. And then we try to start getting the roll and the lift to be together. As they develop more coordination and more ability to sequence and pattern correctly. I think that's where we want to go with it ultimately, and then really start to load it. I think too often we spend way too much time going too quickly into loading and too quickly into trying to put it all together in motion, and we lose some of the quality of what we're trying to develop from an overhead patterning standpoint, and it doesn't have the same benefit as far as correcting movement or building good movement pattern anymore. And thank you for your time, I appreciate it, and that's everything.